The saying is at the end of the day that behind every great man there's a greater woman. Well, actually, behind every great woman there's a great man, a noble man who stands in the background and supports. The Duke of Edinburgh was one of these great people that we all know about, but there was another one that used to take a lot of flack, and that was Margaret Thatcher's husband. I got to meet Margaret Thatcher's husband totally and utterly by accident. I was in Gibraltar, living in Gibraltar. They were very good friends of the governor and the governor's wife of Gibraltar, and they were coming out on a visit. And it was going to be one of these convoluted things that happened every now and then. There was going to be a meeting, you're going to talk to this one, you're going to talk to that one. And the great men that stand behind these even greater women are obviously a little bit bored and they want someone to talk to. Fortunate me, I got chosen to actually entertain Mr. Thatcher. Now then, all these things you read in newspapers and everywhere else are one thing. The truth is totally different altogether. Very intelligent man, exceedingly clever, very, very bright. Good that he kept in the background because there might have been a competition who should be further forward. But after all, she was the Prime Minister of England. And the real crushing part of all of these type of talks that you can actually give, they said to me, "Go and look after him. Can you do that?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "He drinks gin and tonic just like you do." I thought, okay, this is interesting. So we're going to get there sort of early, late afternoon. And we're going to be yakking and chatting. And I am told, categorically, that waiter over there is yours. He's going to be keeping a beady eye on you. And when the drinks get down to about that size, he said, he's going to be coming along and refreshing your drinks. What do we do? Well, you drink them. I thought, okay, so we'll drink slowly. But I didn't know I'm with a professional. I'm just a mere amateur. So we're there, we're yakking and chatting about things that are great and the good and all the things that will be happening in the UK and what should be happening in Gibraltar. And the waiter's coming across and it's going. Then it suddenly dawns on me that, Eric, my boy, we could be in a little bit of trouble here. Because if we keep consuming these, we're not drunk. They're keeping him nice and weak and everything. They're okay. But we might need a loo very quickly and we may have to excuse ourselves and then we're failing in the position that we have been given. But after this position that you have been given, you're to walk in to the dining hall and dine with him. How long can we last like this? This could be marginally difficult. So what was happening is I was finding local plant pots, and when I say local plant pots, local to me, where the waiter would come along and I would try to put the unfinished drink, finish it off, dear boy. Okay, I'll finish it off. So we learned after 3 of these that finishing it off was very dangerous. And what I needed was a plant pot very close by. And look at that, and you ready for another one or what? Like hoping he will slow down before me. But these are the silly situations that sometimes everybody eventually will find themselves in, I think. And you don't expect them coming, and people say they're adventures. They're not. But the one thing that stuck in my mind while that was happening, I remembered David Niven. And this was shortly afterwards, when everything was quieting down and we're shaking hands and waving night-night and we're all going to go home. And I remember David Niven's book that I was reading. Not then, but I had read, is better to state. And David Niven actually said, one of the greatest times in my life, he says, I spent an afternoon with Winston Churchill walking round his garden. He said it was absolutely excruciating and perfect. He says, and afterwards, when it was all over with, and people asked me about it, he says, I couldn't think or remember of one quotable quote that this famous gentleman came out with. Sadly, I was in the same position. Whatever I think about now, we had a couple of hours together. We were at dinner together afterwards, and all I can remember at the time was Mrs. Thatcher turning round and saying, and she wasn't the Prime Minister at that particular moment in time, turning round and said, I met a Gibraltarian today in the street, and she said to me, Mrs. Thatcher, you should still be the Prime Minister. And I told this lady, I should, shouldn't I? I wasn't talking to her, I was talking to her husband. What can I say? Stories from the past. There are others that come up in your mind, and we'll talk about them later.